WYSP, WYSP HD1 Philadelphia. Thank you for 40 years. Sincerely, 94 WYSP.
94 WYSP. It is the last days of YSP, and I'm Spike here with Fox and Leonard.
This is an absolute thrill for me, man. This is like, I just retired from radio.
Oh.
And so this is like a 46-year career that's now coming full circle.
Yeah, isn't it? I'll tell you, I'm sad. I've worked here 15 years. I'm 35, so like my whole adult life, basically. And I'm sad that the station is going away. But it really is neat to be able to take a week and get people like you on and just have everybody kind of, send it off the right way. It's
pretty remarkable, man.
Yeah.
And YSP is a legacy in this business, man. And to have been part of it at the very beginning, what a trip. Let me just say that for us to be doing the show over a phone like this is how we did it for 4 years. I don't think we ever saw each other in 4 years.
No.
What years were you guys here on YSP?
Well, all those questions you're going to ask about specific times and dates, Bob's going to have to ask.
Well, see, and that's why radio's different. I feel like I got into it at the wrong time. Well,
let me tell you about the start of Fox and Leonard, if I could.
Please do.
And Sonny could tell you how rock first came to WYSP because he brought it there with Lee Abrams. But as far as Fox and Leonard went, I had been brought to Philadelphia from a station in North Jersey by the late Dave Clare. Excuse me, I'm getting older. I have to clear my throat from time to time. The late Dave Clare and the late Julian Breen had started a brand new format and a station in Philadelphia on WIP-FM called WMGK. And they brought me in to do their first morning show. And while I was there, I was very disillusioned, and I called two radio stations trying to get a better job. One was WIP and WYSP. Sonny returned my call, and he brought me in for an interview, and in typical Sonny Fox manner, we did most of the interview in his Corvette, which was a wonderful ride and a great experience. And so he hired me to do the morning show. A couple of months in, he called me into his office. He was program director, and he said, "Have you ever heard of Bob and Ray?" And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, man, let's do it." And we did what became, I am told, the first two-man morning show in rock radio and the prototype for morning zoos because we had a cast of characters.
Well, and then
that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that formula that you guys were first up still, in 2011, you look at any successful morning show, is still the same formula that is used today even.
We were just about having fun.
The only difference between that formula, if I may brag, and some of the ones today is that a lot of ones today are manufactured. A program director will bring in this person, bring in that person, you got to get along. We are good friends. And by the way, Bob mentioned how rock radio came to YSP because we're talking about YSP too. Lee Abrams first contacted me out in California where I lived, and we came in, and the first album rock experiment we did was anyway, in New Orleans. It's changed colors.
I think it was NOE, wasn't it?
No, that was the other one. It was RNO, WRNO.
Okay.
And we had a wonderful time. We got done with the ratings. They didn't pay us, so Lee went back to live with his folks, and I stayed in New Orleans as a disc jockey. And Lee called me up and said, "You want to be the program director? We got a new station in Washington." And I said, "Great. I think Howard Stern was doing mornings." And I said, "Fine. I missed the plane." So I was too busy partying in New Orleans. I missed the plane. They didn't want somebody who's that irresponsible, so I screwed that completely. And I was sitting down there feeling really bad, and Lee says, 2 weeks later he calls and goes, "How about Philadelphia?" So we flew in, and Bob told the story of how we first got the show going. But what a lot of people didn't know was that I did the show from my house. Bob was in the studio doing all the hard work, spinning the records, playing the commercials, and all that. And I was sitting in my bathrobe out in the living room. I convinced the people that ran the station that it was such a lot of crap. It was very difficult to be a program director and the morning show guy, too. So I would say, I'll do the show from the house. You put up permanent broadcast lines, and then I'll come in around noon and I'll do the PD thing. And they said, fine. Well, what I must admit may have started as a streak of laziness turned out to be fantastic because we weren't in the same room together. We were hearing each other like the audience hears them. We were, because there's a lot of body language when you're sitting in a room with somebody, how they look at you, their facial expressions, their hand gestures. And so as a result of working with Bob in that fashion, and I have lots of stories about that apartment, but when I went down to Miami and had another morning shows there for 20 years, I put the newsman and my partners all in separate rooms. I never did a show in a room because of what Bob and I did.
And let me say, we had to come up with a system where we wouldn't step all over each other. And so we had, I would sit there with a notepad writing, okay, Sonny has the back cell, I've got the weather. We determined which elements each would take and what our out cues were. And at that point, we just ad-lib and play around that. And once we heard the out cue, we'd know, okay, he just said the last word, he's going to say it's my turn now. And so we had to do that. We were forced to listen, and consequently, nobody had a clue until I think it was the Philadelphia Inquirer did a story about us 3 years in or 2 years in, something like that.
Well, I'll tell you, an amazing thing about doing it that way, too, is that you say that it forces you to have to listen, but also the good thing is that a lot of times when you're looking at somebody, when you're talking to them, you see when they're ready to talk in the middle of your statement, so you almost even stop thinking about what you're saying because you know that they are about to say something as well. So I feel like it helps everybody when you do something like that.
Well, there was also a character called George Gump on the show, but I'll tell you what, why don't we take a pause and play some music? Can I request something?
Yeah.
A song we played the hell out of, Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen.
94 WYSP. I'm Spike, back with the legendary Fox and Leonard. They were actually just talking about. Actually, I had a question for you guys because you were just talking about the fact that. Wait, who was at home? Bob was at home, right?
No, Sonny was.
Okay, Sonny was at home.
I was working. Sonny was at home.
Right. Now, Sonny said, and I don't need anything too crazy. It's up to you. But you said you were doing the show from your apartment, and then for a second you said, I got a lot of stories about that apartment. I just want one. I want one story.
Just one? That's impossible. Now, what happened was, I also decided as a program director that all the people that came by, because Larry Maggot, who was a very kind, dear friend who owned and ran, I don't know if he still does, or what happened to Larry, but he ran the Spectrum, the Tower Theater, and the Bijou Cafe, and he literally controlled careers. They would come in when they were first started, Hall & Oates at the Bijou. They got big, they go to the Tower. I saw David Bowie do Ziggy Stardust at the Tower, and then they would end up at the Spectrum, and Larry, of course, would get them a lot cheaper because he helped them start their career. So a lot of people came by Philadelphia, a very important market, great venues, and they would come by, of course, sometimes whether they wanted to or not, and promote the concert at the rock radio station. Well, I always thought it was annoying as hell because the Aerosmith would come in or whoever, and they'd have to come in the lobby, all the neon lights, all the secretaries going, oh, I love your music, and all this crap. So I did all the interviews out of my house. And we would send them down the wire, the same wires we did the morning show on. They'd record them back at the studio, and then they'd play them. So my apartment, Kiss came out, Jerry Garcia, Aerosmith, you name it, was at my apartment. And while they were there, you must understand, they were there just with me. We could do whatever we wanted to. It wasn't like you were on the radio. And I'll tell you one story because there's so many of them.
Yeah,
I've got a quick one too. But
yeah, I keep waiting for that because I know there's something there. This is quite a build-up. All right, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean there's lots of stories. Well, Ace Frehley didn't even know where he was but Jerry Garcia came by and they had some tune they were trying to get top 40 radio play at the time, and he was with a lot of record-type suits. And we were trying to talk, and they were out in the kitchen on my phone. Hey, we got an ad in San Diego. We got 2 more ads in New York. And finally, Jerry goes, this is crap. And he kicked them out. He goes, go sit in the limousine. So they left. And so Jerry and I was going to start talking again. He said, and he whipped out a bag of weed. He said, do you have something to clean this with? And I said, no, I have one of those little crank things, but it's broken. He goes, no problem. He goes, where's your bedroom? And I goes, well, it's right down the hall on the right. I followed him down. He runs down the bedroom, pulls the bottom drawer out of my underwear drawer, dumps all my underwear on the floor of the bedroom, dumps the whole bag of weed in the drawer, and takes his paper rollers and starts sifting them. Rolls a big fat one, comes out, and we did the interview. And that's one of my favorite stories because it didn't bother him. He was invading somebody's house. As long as we had a good time.
Let me tell you a quick story about one of the interviews at Sonny's apartment. And I went to a couple of them. I remember David Crosby and Graham Nash and Maddie Singer. Maddie, the humdinger singer, we called him, a promo guy. But there was this one time in particular that this wasn't a rock star. And I had a little MG that I was driving, a little MG, and there was a limo in front of me. So I was headed to Sonny's house. The limo pulls in to his apartment complex, and I pull in behind the limo. The limo stops, and Mel Brooks ran out of the limo, and he goes, "Bob Leonard, hi, I'm Mel Brooks, I'm a star." And from then on, he got funny. We had so much fun with him. And at the end, I said to him, "Look, my dad told me to give you a kiss, Jew's kiss, come here." And I kissed him on the cheek, and that picture is my profile picture on Facebook. And my dad, till the day he died, had that up on his wall.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, Mel was a lot of fun. Get this, how long ago this was. He was there promoting his new movie, Young Frankenstein.
That's right.
Oh, my God. And you know what? The most awesome thing about all of this sounds like at that time, radio and the bands, like it felt like more of a community. Like everybody was on the same level kind of at that time, you know, like you were all in it together, it seemed like, you know.
Well, not only that,
radio was a different animal. It was a completely different animal. We were not only allowed, but we were encouraged to be creative. And that doesn't happen that much today.
You have to remember, this was the first album rock radio station, you know. Well, actually, MMR, I think, was around, but we whipped their butt pretty good. But my attitude when I worked with Lee Abrams, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for Lee Abrams. He changed my life. He changed radio completely. And that was, get over yourself. Radio is supposed to be fun. You're worrying too much about timing, being tight, editing so much, and saying the right thing, and consequently people aren't hearing real people. They're hearing announcers, which next to car dealers are some of the most annoying people on earth. and so,
you know,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that not only was that encouraged, but because of the way we did what we did, we were about entertaining and having fun. I mean, we had a cast of characters that included the story lady, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Jerry Abair, who was on with you guys the other day, but who was an integral part of our show. He was very important to that show.
Yeah, Jerry came off like a cross between a nerd, a gay guy, and an intellectual.
And he's just inherently funny. He opens his mouth and stuff comes out of your nose. He's just a very funny guy.
And I'll tell you what, I'm bragging here, but I take a lot of credit for that because my hero was Steve Allen. If anyone out there is old enough to remember Steve Allen's show or see tapes on YouTube, Steve Allen was the star of what became The Tonight Show. But he gave that show to Louis Nye, Tom Poston, Don Knotts. All the people on that show were the stars, and Steve didn't mind whatsoever that he didn't get all the laughs because everyone knew Steve was responsible for those people being there, you know, and that was the big payoff. But before we rattle on anymore, Bob, why don't you pick a song?
Why don't I pick a song? You know what I'd really, really like to hear, and this, I hope you guys can find it. It's called Love and Affection by Joan Armatrading on 94 WYSP.
I am not in love